Chapter 21. Earth changes and you. Man will battle man, some for freedom, some for power, some for hate, some for food. A day will come. That need not be. That may not be. But if great be the battles, great mushrooms will there be, that burn, then freeze, destroying all that I see, or those that are not free. New people will come from far away stars. Some ones of the light. Some sons of the dark and cold. A hand may the ones offer. Or watch in sorrow only. Remains to see. As free will changes the things that will be. Earth there will be, but man may there not. Know that it is written. Whatever events free will cause to be. When all is over, those who chose the light will be free from the darkness of night. But remains to see if they will live amongst the stars or live amongst the earth. As was in the dark times of Atlantis. The time will come again. Those of the darkness, those who would enslave, those who thirst for power, will grow in power, controlling communication and education. For all to believe their ways are good. Their true ways they will not show. They come instead as great men, solving problems, created themselves, both false and real, to convince all the people that changes must there be. Then will they come to our aid, with concepts good, world peace and harmony. But the truth hidden is slavery they sell, which many will buy, their choice bringing hell. As the dark ones take control, nature spins out of control. The universal spirit, acting through nature, becomes the redeemer of those who reject the dark powers, the selfish evil ways of man, the dark ones and their pawns, in ignoring the universal laws that guide nature and the stars, will cause such great imbalance that stars will fall from the sky. The sky will burn, scorching the evil, turn dark and cold, freezing the evil. The earth will shake, leveling the evil. The oceans will convulse, to drown the evil. The earth will open, swallowing the evil, spewing molten rock to bury the evil. The earth will tip, the mighty oceans will spill, to wash the evil away. Great mountains will sink, ocean land will rise on high. One of the things I came across in the great library, that were heaviest to my heart, at the time, were the predictions of earth changes. From the ancient Atlantean you've just read, to the predictions of simple tribal wise men from diverse cultures all over the world. It seems that there is unprecedented agreement. But free will is a modifier of the great earth changes, and people's choices can make worse, or make better what will come to pass. But no doubt, if you aren't afraid to open your eyes, you can already see irreversible damage to the earth that must follow the laws of cause and effect. Yet there is more to this than meets the eye. Our own personal free will choices will be the determining factor in our own realities of the kind of future world we will each live in. Ecology isn't just about the earth. Many people misunderstand the need for ecological balance. From anti-environmentalists you hear things like, forget the owls, save the humans. This kind of thinking comes from the blindness of selfish separate selves. Such people are so deeply enmeshed in their selfish selves, that they don't see many important things, including things that they think are separate, yet directly impact themselves. They don't see the big picture, that they, we, all creatures, all things, are part of the great oneness of the universe. They obviously also don't understand that since we are all part of and one with the universe, that we are the universe. And thus all life, all creation, is us too, and just as important and critical to the entire balance of things in the universe, and in this case, nature. But contrary to the appearances of their pseudo-compassionate statements in support of humans first, they don't care about other humans either. As universal law would have it, their selfish ignorance renders them so short-sighted that they don't even realize this simple equation. If the owls are going, so are they, ultimately. Funny thing is, environmentalism really is a matter of saving the humans too, even more so. Humans are more fragile than many other species. I have absolutely no doubt that the earth is going to change, and quite dramatically. Other than my personal experiences and observations, there is the unprecedented, almost ridiculous quantity of predictions from unrelated cultures the world over throughout history, that all point approximately to this time period. To anyone with an open mind and the courage to face their fears, and to many scientists trying to be objective, something is very, very off in nature. It is so obvious, and many scientists are trying to warn humanity. But to me, my many personal experiences are the most profound. In my last days before leaving the monastery, I had 5 days of visions myself. In later days, I have spent time in universities, studying people who were having visions, including famous musicians who were having visions of the future, and writing about them in their songs. The ironic thing is, regardless of what humankind has done, or does, to the environment, the Earth is going to live on, the Earth will be okay. What is really in doubt is whether or not it will continue to support human life, or many of the other fragile forms of life that exist right now. True environmentalism is not about saving the Earth, it is only about saving life as we know it, and human life is just one of the species of life as we know it, on this one planet alone. I'm not sure what the current figures are on species extinction. I think I heard a figure of about 180 species a day becoming extinct. Even if it's only one species a week, it means something is very wrong, and that life as we know it is losing its support network. Recent scientific reports talk about birds, reptiles, and fish being born all over the world. Without a given sex, they will not be able to reproduce. Other studies show a radical decline in human sperm levels. Sure, you can do something about some things, but many people need to open their eyes first, and some need to open their eyes to the fact that some things can be changed, and some have simply gone beyond the cause and effect point of no return. Those who can't see it are simply too afraid to face it. They are cowards. All signs point in the same direction. The ancient Atlantean texts have their own predictions about what will occur regarding Earth changes in the next few years. There are also predictions about socio-economic changes. As I mentioned earlier, they were the heaviest, most frightening things I ever read at the time. Later, I came to realize the benefit, the need. And now, I welcome some of the cleansing Earth changes, while I am still heavy of heart about the suffering they will bring. Here are some of my earlier discussions with Zane. Before I came to the monastery, I read things about what they call coming Earth changes. Are there going to be changes on the Earth? And if so, what kind of changes? What will they be? It is written. In fact, it is written and it is written and it is written. But first, before I tell you any more, keep in mind what you have learned about free will and karma. Some changes are destined because they are past the karmic point of no return. They are simply ripples in the pond of the universal law of cause and effect. But others can still be modified with free will, within certain parameters. Coincidentally, if you still believe in coincidence, by now, our library is full of ancient prophecies from dozens of unrelated cultures all around the world. Many of these cultures didn't even know of the existence of the other cultures. Yet they have similar prophecy. They virtually all point to such major changes in the Earth around the end of this very century, or just shortly after, and many predict the same things. How can this be that they all agree when they knew not of each other? Only one answer: inner being, inner voice. What are the most common prophecies between these cultures? One of the common threads running through most ancient prophecies is the prediction that Earth changes will eliminate about 2/3 of the human population on Earth, leaving 1/3, who are purified by the experience, although they will need true teachers at that point. But things have changed since these prophecies were made, and while they may still hold true, there are a few free will forks in the road that could alter the course of the future in ways which could eliminate all life on Earth, or at least all human life. All life, that's hard to comprehend or accept, or bear. I know, but regardless of the extent of which life will be eliminated, the fact is, there will be a great loss of life, both amongst the many life forms and the human. It will be bad enough, regardless of the extent. It will be painful to those of us with true compassion. As if it were not painful enough, and bad enough already. There will be greater earthquakes than ever, recorded, or known by modern humans, volcanoes, land masses sinking and rising. The Earth will turn on its own axis. There will be waves from the oceans miles tall, numerous new plagues, and the return of old ones, and such human violence. All these things each taking their share of the various life forms. Possible occurrences, extra things not necessarily predestined, are asteroid or comet collisions, or near misses that still cause great devastation because of their effects. Nuclear war, and biological, chemical warfare are recent developments that bring the new possibilities, even those beyond the ancient predictions. Know this, humankind has never developed a weapon they have not used. But the worst thing, Peniel, is that before the great earth changes occur, we are most likely going to see political changes that will establish a tyrannical world elite. Who will these be? It will be comprised of the reincarnations of the old, but now secret, Brotherhood of the Belialians. This will be so powerful that only the universal spirit, through the forces of nature, will be able to destroy it. And the things the Belialians will do will be so terrible, that most people will eventually welcome the mass destruction nature delivers, as redemption. I was quaking in my robes. Since the days I first laid eyes on him, everything I had ever heard from this man's mouth, was always absolutely true. And worse, I felt it inside also. And the evidence in the library, at least evidence of predictions, were also overwhelming. So we're pretty much all going to die, or most of us, and it will be like a living hell, all in my lifetime? We are all going to die anyway, are we not, Peniel? Even if none of this comes to pass? So relax, you are going to die anyway. But I am not telling you about these changes to inspire fear. When fear dictates our thoughts and actions, it is usually harmful. More about this on the chapter on the death experience. These changes are simply things that are going to occur, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not. But like a harsh winter, it can devastate those not prepared for it. But if you know winter is coming, and will be harsh, you simply ready yourself. And if you can help your neighbors, that is the greater good. One who has transcended the selfish separate self doesn't experience fear, per se. In time you will understand. What was once a feeling that caused the self to react irrationally, becomes a mere warning mechanism that helps you choose rational action. Fear transmutes into an awareness of potentials of harm or problems, which alerts you to be wary, and to take appropriate action. Atlantis Revisited. I understand. It's just that what you are talking about is more than just a bad winter coming up. Of course. But I thought it was a good allegory of sorts, didn't you? Are you saying I give bad allegories? Wait till you are a teacher and you try it, it's harder than you think. You'd probably come up with something about having to use an outhouse being like the inevitable tide of events. He was trying to lighten the mood a bit by joking around with me. But then he continued with the seriousness of the subject, and reminded me of the cycles of history. As in Atlantis, we are again in the beginning of a period of radical changes for the Earth and its inhabitants, physically, mentally, and spiritually, the entire threefold nature. Humanity's selfishness has taken its toll and is starting to come back in full fury. With the damage that has been done already, there is no preventing the great Earth changes within the next decade. Given a sufficient raise in consciousness, those things that are not past the karmic point of no return, could be altered by free will. However, many are past the point of no return. Ask yourself if the first drops of rain from this great storm of purification have not already begun to fall. There are many things today that are similar to conditions in Atlantis before the great earth changes that destroyed it, including the political powers. The forces of darkness, the sons of Belial, have grown very powerful, and seek to enslave the world, at any cost. Many people who are not directly sons of Belial, are pawns by virtue of their own selfishness. They, unconsciously, follow the conscious evil ones. This is no excuse, however, because they chose their unconsciousness. They are but selfish cowards who have willingly participated in the evil that will bring their own destruction. The brave people of this world open their eyes to what is happening, and refuse to be pawns. Even many of the brave ones are not aligned with the light yet, but at least they have resisted the darkness. These people can save themselves. After they suffer the horrors of what is about to befall the people of the earth, they will have been purified enough, involuntarily as it may be, and this purification will awaken them to the spirit within, and return them to serving universal will. Then at least some good will come of this. Cosmic maid service or judgment days. Oh, more than some good, Peniel. The coming earth changes are not bad things, in and of themselves. They are necessary now, necessary for a cleanup of both the earth and of humans. As all of these changes come to pass, we are given the opportunity for transcension into a new world of unselfish love and harmony. Some will approach the sufferings of this purification with patience, understanding, and unselfish love. Others will react with selfishness, negativity, and resistance. Universal law dictates that each individual, through their attitudes and resultant actions, create and modify their own experiences. Those who love unselfishly will ultimately experience the heaven of that attitude, while those who are negative will ultimately experience the hell brought by that. So it will be like Atlantis all over again? More final than Atlantis. There are some distinct differences between the Earth changes of Atlantis Day and what is going to take place now. First, we cannot escape them as the children did when they fled Atlantis. But also, there are various possibilities for intervention during these great Earth changes. It may be that we will even have some outside help. Many things are not determined fully. Free will choices are still dominant, particularly in whether or not there will be nuclear annihilation, which would create a much bigger mess if it is more than a very limited warring or act of violence. So is there anything we can do about any of it? Yes and no. We can't stop the purification. It is badly needed anyway and we shouldn't want to stop it. We shouldn't see it as a bad thing. But can we do anything about it for ourselves, to survive it? What for? That is the most important question. Do you want to survive to save your selfish separate self, or to help be here to truly free others and point them to the way back to oneness, and free them from their selfish separate selves? But to answer your question directly, yes, and no. No to make inner preparations. There are some physical preparations one could make, and perhaps that will be done by you or others. I will not be involved because I will be gone by then. But think, what good are physical preparations if you don't make the spiritual ones? What's the point? Raise your consciousness first, then help others do the same if you wish to. There is nothing more to say. I have heard people discuss possible, safe areas, places of refuge during the coming changes. I know of many areas that will be more or less free from earthquakes, etc., more or less safe, barring nuclear war and the like. But I tell them what my teacher told me, and his told him, and the ancient teachings told us all. Make your spiritual changes your priority first. Raise your consciousness first. After you have done that, if you still want to pursue safer physical areas, then look for areas where people who have higher consciousness are living. That doesn't mean where the people with the greatest knowledge are, but rather, where those with the greatest kindness and harmlessness are. The greater the consciousness concentrated in a certain area, the greater the chance of being safe. Even on a Annetta 1 basis, the ground could be falling out from under your neighbor's feet, while under your feet, the ground is lifting you above a flood or tidal wave. Raise your consciousness first, and then it won't even matter what happens to you. And like he said, we're all going to die someday anyway. And regardless of how, do you want to be prepared to go on, or be stuck with karma that forces you back to a life on the earth, over and over again, a life of pain and pleasure, or just possibly just pain, on an earth that is very different than what you know now? For one thing, at this time, because of free will factors, we still don't know if the earth of the immediate future will even be inhabitable. But regardless of whether it is or not, the main thing you can do is to become a truly good person, an unselfishly loving person. If there is to be any intervention, the flow, God, hierarchical help, extraterrestrial or whatever, the humans who have changed to a new vibration, a harmless, caring, unselfishly loving vibration, are the people who will be safe, one way or another. If the earth becomes uninhabitable, or there is not intervention, those who have transcended this plane by becoming unselfishly loving, can just go on to a higher plane. And if you were a higher being from outside this plane, intervening and saving people, who would you choose to save? The selfish who live out of harmony with the universe and nature? Or the unselfishly loving, who live in harmony with the rest of the universe? The unselfish ones who are harmless and helpful to all life in the universe. Exactly. But many people think they will be saved from the tribulations. Indeed, what a surprise they have in store if they don't change. There are many people out there, who are under the delusion that they are going to be saved from facing the trials that are coming up for us all. And they think that they don't need to do anything, except perhaps, talk about it, or, believe, in this or that. Some think Jesus will save them, without them becoming really good people, just because they believe in Jesus. Some think aliens will save them. Some think they'll go to the fourth dimension. The biggest hole I see with these hopeful, wishful thinking scenarios is the lack of personal responsibility that they allow for. Some believe that only whatever they think, or believe, or accept, will totally create their reality. So they think that if they don't give energy to earth changes or the coming chaos and destructions, they will not be subject to them, because they did not create them for themselves, so they won't have to experience them. But they take this precept to the extreme, and this precept is only half of a paradox, only partially true. When you meet one of those pineal, or when you write in the future, tell those who believe that way, that if you really don't believe you can be harmed by earth changes, or anything else that you don't allow in your consciousness or draw to yourselves, here is a simple test of how well it works, or how up to the challenge you are. Try this. Why don't you believe you can't have a car accident, otherwise you'll attract one to yourself? If you believe you can have car accidents, then once you get that in your head, I dare you to try driving through red lights all the time. I'm not really recommending or inciting people to do this. I'm trying to make a point with a very real scenario. The fact is, if you drive through intersections against red lights constantly, you are going to suffer the consequences whether you believe someone will save you from an accident or not. Don't believe me? See what happens if you are foolish enough to try it. And why wouldn't you try it? Because you know there is likely to be a car coming through the other way. Even if you've never seen it, even if you can't see it. The changes that have happened to the earth, and are coming back to us from what has been done, is just as certain as traffic coming the other way. We are talking about reality here. And universal reality. Our species has been running the red lights of nature. They have run the big red lights and broken universal law. You personally have probably done so also, unless you are already enlightened. Most of the people of the world have run the big red lights. And there simply is no way of escaping the consequences of breaking universal law. Unlike on Earth, with man-made laws, there is ultimate justice in this universe. That is karma. Interestingly enough, when Zane came to the United States in his later years, he would drive in city traffic, as fast as a car would go, through red lights and all, and never had an accident, or even a ticket. Zane, however, truly understood universal law, was one with the universal spirit, and thus he was just part of the universal flow, for real. He didn't just profess or lightly believe in some philosophy or spiritual principle. He had become. Father, why do so many people believe they will be saved from all these things at the last minute? Despite a lack of logic regarding there being any substance to the various fantastic theories of unearned salvation, and a preponderance of evidence that we are facing real ecological and socio-political disaster, the illogical salvation theories are what many people desperately want to hear and believe, so they believe. They buy into this mental, emotional panacea, this religious fire insurance. Why? Why do they close their eyes when opening them as their best chance to get through whatever happens? Simple. Fear and laziness. The selfish separate self doesn't want to die and let the inner being take its place on the throne, nor does it want to face its karma, or the reality of the karma created by what has been done to the entire earth. So they exhibit the ostrich syndrome, they hide their heads and think they're safe. They do this because they're so full of fear that they don't think objectively or logically, thus they are more than happy to accept these unfounded theories of salvation without need for personal purification, enlightenment, or responsibility. Just think for a moment, why would we deserve such unjustified salvation? Do you really believe the universe works that way? Do you not think there are universal laws that govern the functioning of all things? Do you think you can break those laws and nothing will happen? What alien or higher being, who really is a higher being, is going to save parasites that are so destructive, so disharmonious to nature and universal flow? Parasites? That's what all unenlightened humans are, destructive, inharmonious parasites. Or like a virus, or bacterial infection in the body of the earth. So what if the destructive parasites are ordinary, relatively nice people with good beliefs? Even the metaphysical beliefs or religious beliefs such as many religions have? Do you know what the universe's response to that is? So what? If there is going to be any outside help, from the predicted return of the Christ, to the Space Brothers, to whatever, the logic is that they are only going to save those who are truly different than the rest, truly worthy of saving. Meditation is not going to do it for you. And just having a lot of metaphysical knowledge, or religious beliefs, certainly doesn't make you worth saving. Neither does being a relatively good person. If that's what you think, you'll have a big and unnecessary shock when the changes come to your door, and you stare death in the face, only to realize you aren't ready, when you could have been. He was getting very intense, and a crowd of other students had gathered around by this time. He looked around at them all, and pointed. But he was also pointing and speaking to all humanity. How many of you can say you are truly giving, that you care about others more than yourself, that you love unselfishly all the time, and that you have truly and completely transcended your selfish separate self and your physical body and mind? Not many. And if you haven't changed in that way, you'd better get busy, and you'd better make it your top priority. Drop everything else you are doing in your life and get busy with what is really important and eternal before it's too late. Be brave, and take a completely honest look within yourself. Are you truly good enough to live in a perfect paradisiacal world? Look for, and see the things about you that still need perfecting. Be glad when you find the imperfections. It means you've seen them early enough to do something about them. Face the things you have been avoiding. Do the things that inside you know you must do. Change for the better, so that you can save yourself, so you can be saved, so you can go on to a wonderful place, whether it be on a physical plane or a spiritual one. And if you think you have truly changed and transcended yourself, consider this. Those who achieve the death of the selfish separate self, and thusly attain enlightenment, universal consciousness, either leave this plane, or stay to be a true teacher, and help others achieve the same. When you meet those who only have knowledge, and only tell of wisdoms and truths by moving their lips, and talking about it, or worse, telling people they don't need to do anything but think positive, or believe in Jesus, or just believe in anyone or anything, you tell them this. You will not be saved, nor can you be helping other people be saved, i.e., helping them become truly loving and enlightened, while just disseminating theories of, don't worry. Just go with the flow and don't bust your buns changing to be an unselfishly loving person. Just have positive thoughts and faith and you'll be taken to paradise in the rapture, or the fourth dimension, or to a wonderful new planet you can trash again. Or, don't worry, the Space Brothers will fix all the toxic waste and neutralize the bombs. Surprise, surprise, you must act. You must change. You must live as the Grand Master taught us through his examples on Earth. All of us were so moved, and stunned, that we were silent for at least 5 minutes. Years later, a musician named Neil Young wrote a post-apocalypse song called, After the Gold Rush, referring to the gold rush of a nuke explosion, not the romantic gold mining days of the Old West. It was based on visions. Here are excerpts from some of the lyrics. I was lying in a burned-out basement, with the full moon in my eyes. I was thinking about what a friend had said. I was hoppin', it was a lie. There were children cryin', and colors flyin' all around the chosen ones. All in a dream, the loading had begun. Flyin' Mother Nature's silver seed, to a new home in the sun. Are you one of the silver seed? Or will you be watching the deserving, chosen ones, the silver seeds, leave you behind as you recite your beliefs? Clutch whatever the holy book of your religion is, or your book about the Pleiades, while you wonder why you aren't going to? Along the same subject, one day I had asked Saint about all the references I'd read about God's chosen people. This is what he had to say. The ancient teachings say the chosen ones are not chosen, because of genetics, their heritage, beliefs, being God's favorite brats, or through knowledge they are the ones who have made themselves chosen, vibrationally changed by their own hard work and self-sacrifice. Thus, if there is intervention in the hard times, or last days of life as we know it now on earth, the true chosen will be recognized by their enlightened, selflessly loving vibrational signature. And if there is no intervention, the chosen, those who chose to change for real, will still have vibrationally mandated their rise to a higher plane of existence, when the time comes to leave here, because they are the ones who have gone through the fires of purification in order to become totally harmless and giving. You had better get real. You had better wake up. You had better dispel your self-centeredness. I'm working on it. Like I said before, I read about earth changes even before coming to the monastery. And sometimes I would talk to my friends about it, because I could feel what was coming. But they said to me, how can you live in such fear? What can you say to someone who looks at you that way? I say, who is it that is living in fear? The one who is able to see and deal with the obvious realities, or the one who blocks them out, and doesn't want to see it, thus doesn't. Those who cannot see the writing on the wall, are the ones living in fear. We who have accepted death, have accepted life. And we thus have nothing to fear. Who is more afraid, and wiser? The ostrich who sticks his head in a hole in the ground to avoid the predator about to eat him? Or is the squirrel who stores his nuts for the winter, knowing he may need them because of the dire conditions to come? And also tell them this: whether the earth of the future is habitable or not, you should be prepared to leave this plane, leave your body. Even if there are no earth changes, someday you will die anyway, and to do it right, you should have experienced death, transcended yourself, beforehand. And to live right, to attain universal consciousness, to become a fully unselfishly loving being, you must also have experienced death beforehand. Again, the last chapter in part 1 of this book discusses the death experience. Lots of water, but few cups. The heaviest teachings were yet to come. They were something I was yet to learn about, that hadn't even crossed my ostrich mind. I guess I had a safety net, even in my own relatively open-minded beliefs. What was the safety net? Since I believed in reincarnation, and knew we kept getting chances to get it right, at least there was that. But then Zane told me about the ancient Atlantean teachings regarding the next historical cycle. The primary difference between the time of Atlantis and now is that those WHO are not free from their karma, free from the need to reincarnate, will have no bodies to return to after the changes. That was a shocker. It took me a few minutes to assimilate and grasp all that it meant. Zane could see this, and just waited until I recovered, then he went on. Many people will die as a result of these forthcoming Earth changes, leaving far fewer human inhabitants on Earth afterwards. There is even the possibility of total extinction of human life on Earth. But let's say there are still humans living on Earth, which is likely. These people will have gone through major changes, physically, mentally, and spiritually. These will be the seeds of a new human race. Their consciousness will be of oneness with the universal spirit. This will be a great new age. But think about your lessons regarding universal law. The universal law that dictates that vibration will seek its own level, will make a sort of natural selection of who will be able to reincarnate. You know the teachings on conception of a child and consciousness. Thus, those who do not free themselves from selfishness, would not be of the consciousness that would allow them to incarnate in the offspring of the new higher consciousness inhabitants of the new earth. Not for a very long time at least. What about materialization rather than birth? What about it? We were able to do that when we first came to this plane because our consciousness and nature was so much of the spiritual plane. And certainly anyone with such consciousness can do that. But what are we talking about here? The selfish, material-bound masses of the earth plane? Who of them will be capable of materialization? So what will happen to those that don't make it? Since the earth will not be an option for them, and since they are still bound to the selfish separate self, and the material plane, something else must happen to them, because nothing is ever truly destroyed or lost in this universe. Things only change form, so what will happen to them? The ancient teachings say they will incarnate within the bowels of Saturn, and live in a lava-like state for millions of years, awaiting the right conditions for them to be able to return to the earth, to try and get it right. I was stunned, speechless. The new age. And what of a new age on earth? The possibility exists, but it is important to keep in mind that we are spiritual beings. That is our true state, our real state. We are not this physical baggage, this animal we inhabit while on earth. We fell here, but we do not really belong here. The earth is not our home. So if you really achieve the kind of spiritual enlightenment that would entitle you to be a citizen of such a glorious new age in which everyone has Christ consciousness, and then you are given the choice to either stay here, or return to angelic bodies and travel the universe in bliss, in heaven, what would you choose? It wouldn't really matter, but most people do enjoy traveling if they can afford it and don't have insecurity issues. But right now, there are only two valid reasons for being here, other than for a visit. Again, we fell from our spiritual state here, and took on this physical state as an aspect of our separation from the One, making the physical form part of our separate self. So first, we need to be here until we break free of our bonds to the earth and our selfish separate selves. So the first valid reason to be here is because we must while we work towards attaining enlightenment and oneness again. Then, once that is attained, we are free to go, but the compassion that brought us to our rebirth in oneness, also makes us want to stay to help others who are still slaves to themselves, and bound to the earth. Thus, staying to help others is the only other valid reason for living on earth at this time. Help wanted. What is needed most today? First, that people be warned that they will be dealing with the repercussions of their actions, and that humans as a whole will also be dealing with grand repercussions on an earth-wide scale. What is of primary importance is that you are doing one of two things: helping to awaken others to the spirit within them and without them, or developing that awareness yourself. You cannot give that which you don't have. The greatest service you can do for the universal spirit is to serve others. The greatest service to others is awakening them to the universal consciousness that lies within them, and helping them free themselves from their selfish separate self. Thus, we first need to prepare ourselves so that we may be an instrument in helping our brothers and sisters prepare. What is meant by prepare? To become one with the universal spirit, to be one spiritually, mentally, and physically. We must be transcendent of selfishness, regardless of what takes place around us. Many are making the move back to the land, towards self-sufficiency in order to better prepare for the coming changes and to live in harmony with nature. This is wise if it is in harmony with universal flow rather than spurred on by selfish motivation. Although living in harmony with nature, with the land and elements, is a normal inclination when the physical is more in tune with spirit, ultimately, you must be where you are needed most for the universal work, not where you want to be, or where it is most natural to be. For some it may be in the countryside, for some in the city, for some a foreign country. What are your motives for being where you are? What are you doing? First you have to do it yourself, or you won't have the ability to really help others. People should practice what they preach, and teach by example.